This is Liberty Under Attack Radio, hosted by Shane and Matt. Your place for documented truth and where freedom is the only agenda. We must end the terror war.
Abandon hope and forget what you know. This is the land of the blind and soul. Welcome to the house of
and good evening and welcome. Today is March 15th, 2015, and you're listening to Liberty Under Attack Radio on the Freedom Phalanx Radio Network. I did let that intro song play just a little longer. Reason being, it's one of my favorite bands. Their name is Anchorlines, and they just recently announced that they are getting back together. So definitely go check them out. It's a great band and definitely some good music. So go check them out on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Anchorlines. As always, I am your host, Shane, and I've got my co-host, Matt, with me. Tonight's broadcast will surely be interesting. These subjects are favorites of your humble hosts. Matt, how's it going tonight, brother?
Going good.
Good to hear. Good to hear. You can join in on the discussion by calling 567-314-9296 or on Skype at FPRN Radio Live. If you're away from your computer, you can listen on your mobile device by using the Listen Live line provided by Audio Now. That number is 712-432-4365. You can also tune into all of your favorite FPRN shows on apps like TuneIn Radio, Shoutcast, and Stitcher. So at this point, I will give you a sneak peek of this week's edition of Matt's Q&A series on the Terror Industrial Complex. We are a little late on adding these to the website, but we will get these up tonight. So Matt, if you don't support the government's war on terror, do you sympathize with terrorists?
Absolutely not. On a personal level, speaking for myself, I resent the state terrorism of the U.S. government, as much as I despise non-state terror groups throughout the world. To extend that point, also hypocritically, U.S. government-backed terrorist outfits as well. In this context, there's no sympathy for terrorists. All forms of terror are condemned, with nobody receiving special privilege or immunity over anybody else. I don't play favoritism when it comes to the subject of terrorism. Nobody is under mandatory obligation to support the global war on terror. And even if they were, that is an unacceptable societal and globalized normalization that must be overcome.
Okay, right on. And you can find all of the sources and the rest of the Q&As for this week and all of them in general at the website that's libertyunderattack.com. I will also take the time to mention that we are looking for others to join and assist us in our efforts here at Liberty Under Attack. If you're interested, feel free to call in or shoot me an email at shane@libertyunderattack.com. We will accept any whatever skill you have that you want to volunteer. We'll definitely accept it. Also, if you want to stay updated with Liberty Under Attack, there is an email subscribe button on the main page. Updates, reminders, and crucial information will be sent there, as I've mentioned a couple times already on our shows. You can find us on Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, and Zeekly. All of those links can be found on the website as well as our FPRM page. So I just returned from my spring break vacation. It's gone for about 3 to 4 days. So Matt and I have definitely not had as much time as usual to prepare. But I will say this. At this location that I was at, there's no better place to mentally prepare for a broadcast. I was in a small town in southern Illinois where the rebel flags still fly high, and most everyone is missing most, if not all, of their teeth. A town of about 50 people, and in my opinion, the greatest place in the world, heaven on earth. And I will show you a few pictures from there to give you an idea. That picture is on the live stream right now. So this location is the bug-out location for a small amount of folks, and throughout the years, it has served as an escape for a lot of people. All-terrain vehicles, four-wheelers, are owned by most, and the riding terrain is damn near the best out there, if not the best. The resources are very vast for surviving off the land, and it's particularly easy to do. For example, this weekend included fresh maple syrup, as you see right here, tapped straight from the tree the previous day. It's about as fresh as it gets. Some other interesting resources. We've got ginseng, sassafras, nettle, various berries, and fresh spring water. And also, obviously, the list doesn't end there, but those are just a few things. So, whenever I was on vacation, I did have some interesting discussions. And I feel the need that I should address a couple of these things before we move any further. I was posed the question of, what do you want your listeners to do with the information? And also, what are your goals for your show? Both were great questions, and ones I've thought of a lot myself, and I don't have any complete answers to both of those, but I will attempt to give my best answer at this time. I won't speak for Matt here, but my goals for Liberty Under Attack Radio are very simple. First off, to get the listeners to start thinking critically, to get them to start thinking for themselves. As Bill Cooper said frequently, most people have never had an original thought in their lives. That is one of my goals for this broadcast. Second, to get people to start doing their own research and not just believe anything anyone says. We live in the age of information, but also it is the age of deception as well. Listen to everyone, read everything, believe nothing unless you can substantiate it in your own research. And you'll hear that from me a lot, because I don't want you to believe me. I don't want you to believe Matt. I want you to do your own research and come to your own conclusions. That is the goal. And lastly, for now, to motivate people to teach others. It isn't easy to make this step out into the public. There's a lot of ridicule, isolation, trolling, harassment. Quite frankly, you find out who your true friends are. At this point, I will turn it over to Bill, as we do with every broadcast, and allow him to explain this. Producer, if you could cue up clip 1.
If you want to find out how quickly society can turn against one, and I'm talking seriously here, stand up and tell the truth about just anything that you want to stand up and tell the truth about. It scares the living daylights out of everyone. And so the first thing that happens is you find out who your friends are and who your friends are not, because there's a great weeding out there. And it's not anything that you do on your part or that I've done on my part. They just disappear. And you find very quickly that people are afraid to be around you because they can see the government being upset about what you're talking about. And they can see repercussions coming, and of course they have happened and will continue to happen. And ultimately, I really believe that there will be some kind of a terminal point where they decide that they're not just not going to put up with this pest anymore, and that's going to be the end of me. We have been literally financially in the ditch. We have found it impossible to get any kind of a normal job with anyone who knows anything about what I do. You can't go to church, you can't go to cocktail parties because everybody else is sitting around talking about the weather or, oh, what school did you go to? And when you have done the research and arrived at some of the answers that I know to be true now, those people become like kindergarten children. They're not in the real world, and I can't engage in that kind of a conversation. So you really find yourself in another world that has nothing to do with all of the rest of the people who are running around engaged in their activities that they think are so important to them. And to them, they really are. But to me, they've lost the reality of what really is important, and they're about to lose their freedom to even discover those things at this point.
May I ask you a last question, and that is, how would you like to be seen or remembered in future years when people look back and you think about the thrust of your work? What is it that you would like to be best remembered for?
I think I would like to be remembered like Paul Revere was remembered. At a time when it was needed and nobody else would do it, I got on my horse and rode through the night and said, the British are coming. That's all. I'm not looking for any fame or any fortune. You certainly don't get rich doing what I'm doing. And infamous is probably the real word that describes what happens to you as far as public recognition in a world where political correctness is the theme of the day. You just don't do what I'm doing. So if anybody wants to remember me, I would certainly be pleased if they just remembered I did what was the responsible and the right thing to do at a time when nobody else had the guts to do it.
And that clip right there, it does hit me hard. And Bill has a lot of those. I guess you could call them parts in his broadcast where he does say some very important things, and they are definitely true. They're definitely true. As far as the other question, I don't really have any answers of certainty as far as what I want my listeners to do with the information. I don't claim to know everything or to have all the answers. I don't. I'm only 22 years old. Only 22. I've just begun. On my lifetime of research. I'll be the first to tell you that I don't know if I don't know. I don't have a magical plan to restore freedom. I don't have any plans of action. I don't have any, end goals for the listeners to work for. There's one thing that I'm certain about, though. In this dualistic world we live in, both options suck. Voting is ineffective, and revolutions are dangerous. Now, voting in local elections could make a difference, and I don't blame those who still are active in local politics. But voting in a presidential election and thinking your vote matters is the most naive thing anyone could possibly think. And I know some of you will disagree, and that is okay. That is okay. For me personally, registering to vote in even just local elections would be me taking part in a corrupt, rigged system. And I cannot morally allow myself to do that. You just can't change the system from the inside. You can't go into the mafia as a good person and change them into good people. You just can't do that. And as far as revolutions go, the end result is unknown. Add in the fact that most revolutions throughout history, if not all, two examples being the Bolshevik Revolution and the French Revolution, were started and guided by those in power. Revolutions are extremely dangerous. In my opinion, the first step is education. We can figure out the details as we go, but education is the first step. We must research everything, and we must share this information with others. Our laziness or cowardice of not taking these steps will only destroy us, but it will destroy future generations as well. Your kids, your grandkids, etc., etc. But I am a realist. The chances of little old me changing the world are pretty slim. Slim to none, I would say. But the chances of an awakened, educated humanity focusing on the common bond of freedom is a much better chance. That is all I have on those subjects for now. But let's get started with what we have planned tonight. So the question for the listeners this evening is, what do you think will be the climactic event that will fully bring in the New World Order? And I say fully because we are living in the New World Order. So feel free to call in and share your thoughts and opinions. We'd surely love to hear them. So tonight's broadcast will focus on FEMA, Civil Defense Doomsday Hideaways, the planned police state, and also some opinions on what their plans are for the future. Anything we take the time to discuss on Liberty Under Attack Radio is important, but in our opinion, these ones are crucial. The reason being, those in power that operate under the order ab chao, or order out of chaos, and the problem reaction solution philosophies are preparing for something huge. All you have to do is look at structures like Mount Weather and the Air Force installation at Cheyenne Mountain to be sure of that. We have our thoughts and opinions, but what specifically it is, we honestly cannot be sure. And as I said, we'll surely divulge our thoughts and opinions on that very subject in this broadcast, and we can promise you that there will be no Alex Jones fear-mongering or any bullshit like that when we do so. As I mentioned, these are a couple of our favorite topics to research, and there are a few reasons for that. First off, we know that the American dollar will fail. It should have already failed. That will be reason enough to get out of town and head to your bug-out zones. We've seen some of these idiotic materialistic fuckers on Black Friday kill someone over a damn flat screen. You better make sure you are far away when something tragic actually happens. Second off, those people are always looking, those in power are always looking to depopulate and cause as much havoc as possible. Again, problem, reaction, solution. Order out of chaos. They cause the chaos, the problem, and they wait for the sheeple to react, and then they offer the ultimate solution. That solution will always be an implemented step towards this worldwide socialist dictatorship known as the New World Order, or also known as the Anglo-American Empire. And it will lead to an even greater loss of freedom and sovereignty, and will be another shackle on the ankles of humanity. Lastly, it is important to know the enemy, their tactics, and their game plan. When you see all of the preparation and planning that those in power have done, are doing, and will continue to do, it is only logical to begin doing your own. We will give you, the listener, some tips and tricks that we found in our preparations. The first hour or so, probably be an hour and a half, will be spent on documentation, and the second hour will be for the majority spent on commentary, thoughts, opinions of your humble hosts, and those of anyone that wants to call in and talk with us. So, first off, we're going to touch on some current news. That first subject will be, I think it was the 12th, Thursday. The FCC legislation that was recently passed was finally released. It took them about 3 weeks to finally release that to the public. We will look through that this week and offer our thoughts on it in next week's show. But we just didn't have time to do that this week. So, Matt, do you have something to add there?
Yes, they followed through with the Title II regulatory measures. Please continue.
Okay. So the first, I guess the first subject for current news I like to touch on, and I'm not going to get into the politics of it or anything like that, but the Tom Cotton letter to the leaders of the Islamic Republic of Iran, signed by him and 47 GOP senators, is pretty much just educating the leaders of Iran on what a constitutional system is. And first off, I like to say we aren't a constitutional system. We haven't been since the Act of 1871. And the majority of politicians know this. Maybe not every single one of them, but the majority of them do. And I can assure you of that. This next clip I'm going to play is from Faux News, or Fox News. And Alan West nonchalantly admits that Obama is the chief executive officer of the United States Corporation. This should have been a huge deal, but literally no one paid attention to it. Producer, please play clip 2.
Congressman West, is it time for the government to be shut down if the White House and Congress can't agree in order to force the president's hand and compel him to do what we hired him to do, which is run the government within the confines of the Constitution and only with the money he collects from taxes and other fees?
Well, you're absolutely right, Judge. You know, what we have to look at is the president is the chief executive officer of this corporation called the United States of America. Look, he told the vice president that he would be part of this this budget process, but now the vice president has left the country. So I don't think you see any seriousness coming out of the White House. The bottom line is this: we have a situation that we have to deal with. And I think that the American people, if we continue down the road of subsequent 2-week CRs, there's just more uncertainty, unpredictability that we are creating out there. And when you have that uncertainty, then you're also creating a lack of trust and confidence in who we are and what we were sent here to be. You know, I spent 22 years being a leader in the United States Army, and that's what I'm up here to do, is to show my leadership.
Oh, my God.
Chief Executive Officer.
Oh, my God. He literally just admits it on Fox News. That should have been like the headline all over. Alan West calls the United States a corporation. No, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. So as most of you should know, corporations operate under corporate and contractual law, not under a constitutional form of government. In addition to that fact, there's not a president of a corporation. It's a CEO, a chief executive officer, as Alan West so briefly explained. This entire system that is paraded in front of your face every single day is an illusion, a fallacy. It holds no merit at all. It's a lot like this phony money that we carry around in our pockets every day. And as we covered last week, you've got to remember that the GOP is controlled by the same folks as Democrats and liberals. What we were seeing stem from this event is the continuation of this illusion that they are on opposite teams. Lastly, why the hell are these liberals so pissed that these Republicans violated the Constitution or the law when their team destroys it on a daily basis? They break the law on a daily basis. When have they ever worried about the law? When? Never. This is a political stunt. The folks that signed this letter are all either complicit or paid to support and pass legislation in favor of this endless terror war. And if they won't pass the legislation, then Obama will, the chief executive officer, whoever it is, will just go around Congress and do it anyways. It doesn't make a damn difference. It really doesn't. Even Rand Paul, the one who is going to save this country, has, I wouldn't say switched sides, but he's showing his true colors now. And he's slowly admitting that he is for U.S. intervention. In addition, this letter, in my opinion, it's just another way to continue the religious war, in a way, to continue the terror war. I mean, there's not really much else I want to say on that note. The real question to ask is, why does this even matter? It's honestly a waste of time for us to be covering this little trinket of news, but we can indeed use it to instill some truth and show you how ridiculous this entire thing is. I really don't follow things like this much because it's takes a lot of time, and a lot of times it's all BS anyways. It is, and especially when the liberals are pissed off at the Republicans and the Republicans are pissed off at the liberals for something they did, when in reality they're on the same team. I guess a good rule of thumb is this: when the mainstream media is harping about something nonstop, don't focus on it. When they're holding their shiny ball over here, try to find out what's going on over here, what they're distracting you from. Matt, do you have anything to add there, man?
No. Please continue.
No. All right. So the next article I want to mention is a kind of a continuation of that first one. But apparently a bunch of people have signed a petition to have these GOP senators charged for treason or whatever they want to charge them with for sending this letter to Iran. It's gotten about 140,000 signatures as of a few days ago. So I don't even know what it's at now. But I simply cannot believe it. Well, I guess I can. It's expected. Out of all of these treasonous actions that these folks commit on a daily basis, this is what the sheeple care about. The list is literally endless, and on the complete list of things, this incident is extremely minor, if noteworthy at all. So here are a couple of major ones that no one seemed to give a damn about. The signing of the United Nations Charter that completely usurped sovereignty and freedom in the United States, the bitter sovereignty that JFK talks about. And this next one's a two-parter. The Global Disarmament Bill signed by John F. Kennedy and Kennedy's speech to the United Nations in 1961. Those are the highest forms of treason possible. No one gives a damn about them. No one. Not a single person. And on top of that, people praise these criminals, including JFK, and that's one of the most frustrating things now. Worshipping politicians. That's crazy. But every single one of them is the enemy of all the peoples of the world. It's all about priorities, folks. And the priorities of most in this nation are so far out of line and hardly ever in the realm of reality. The majority of folks live in la-la land, where everything is rainbows and unicorns. I assure you it's not. I don't think I've ever seen a unicorn. So now that we've covered that, we can move on to more important subjects. So first, I'd like to dig into executive orders national security decision directives, national security memos, and the FEMA executive orders, among other things. As with every broadcast, like we've already done, we'll begin with some more Bill Cooper. I'll be reading from the chapter in his book called Behold a Pale Horse, called Goodbye USA, Hello New World Order, which will begin with an introduction on activities and legislation that has allowed this to take place. Then we'll tie it into one of the most interesting, one of the most unknown, and one of the most underreported places known as Mount Weather. And I will be reading from his book for a little while, but there really isn't a better explanation than the one that he provided. And also, like I said, this chapter is called Goodbye USA, Hello New World Order. It's page 110. Quote, when our forefathers wrote the Constitution of these United States, they provided safeguards against despotism by providing a balance of power. The Constitution was set up to provide clear divisions of legislative, judicial, and executive powers. It was believed that this system would ensure that if one branch got out of hand, the other two would act to keep the one in check. This balance of power was predicated upon the assumption that none of the three branches could or would infringe upon the powers of the others. The Constitution is clear on the functions of each of the branches. The legislative will make the laws, the judicial will interpret the law, the executive will decide policy and enforce the law. This, of course, is the simplest of explanations, but this is not a textbook on government. My intent is to acquaint you with the simple basics of the balance of power, such you can understand how it has been subverted. The legislature, Congress, in the form of the House and the Senate, is required to publish the laws that are made, and this is done in the Congressional Record and the Federal Register. Pending or passed legislation can be obtained by citizens through their congressman or from the government printing office. Citizens cannot be held responsible for the law if it is not made available to them. It is paradoxical that the government body most representative of the American citizen is one that has been the most easily subverted. Through PACs, payoffs, pork barrel politics, professional politicians, congressmen who are members of secret societies, and through greed and fear, our representatives and senators quit representing us a long time ago. Congress has tremendous powers, but fails in the most cases to exercise even a token amount. How is it that our legislature has allowed and at times encouraged the executive branch to write law? You probably did not know that the president and others in the executive branch of the government can and do write law. This is done in the form of presidential executive orders, National Security Council memos, National Security Decision Directives, and National Security Directives. NSC memos were broad policy papers in the days after passage of the National Security Act. NSC memos became narrower and more specific over the years, and the name has varied. Under Kennedy, they were called National Security Action Memorandums. President Bush has changed the name to National Security Directives. There is a tremendous difference between presidential executive orders, NSC memos, and National Security Decision Directives. Presidential executive orders are listed in the Federal Register or presidential findings, which are made known to the House and Senate Intelligence Committees. The most important difference between the presidential executive orders and all of the others, no matter what they are called, is that the others do not have to be reported, reviewed, made available to anyone, or even acknowledged that they exist. There is no oversight whatsoever that can maintain a check on the legality of these national security directives. The president and others within the executive branch have used these super-secret directives to skirt the balance of power and write law without anyone's knowledge. Justification of the president's power to write law through executive orders stems from the failure of government to rescind the declaration of martial law during the Civil War. In effect, the United States has been under martial law ever since Lincoln's administration. These NSDs are powerful, hidden, and dangerous tools. They were prolific during the Reagan administration. Over 300 were written, with no more than 50 ever leaking out to undergo public scrutiny. Yet most Americans have never heard of these subversive weapons. They are being used to destroy our Constitution. I believe that everyone should know about this corruption of government. Congress has turned a blind eye to these abuses of executive power. At 3:30 a.m. Saturday, August 4th, 1990, the Senate made it even easier for the executive branch to subvert the Constitution and may have made George Bush the first American king. At that time, on that day, a minority of United States senators, maybe 10 at the most, passed Senate Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 1991. This bill will fundamentally change our constitutional system and threatens to destroy the very foundations of our great nation. Since attention has been focused upon the Middle East crisis, the public and most congressmen know nothing about this bill. And we are heading out to break. We'll be back with more Liberty Under Attack Radio, and we will finish this excerpt. We'll be right back.